What is up, guys? My name is Adam LZ, and I'm going to tell you everything that this video is not. This video is not going to be a tour of my car collection. If you want to see the builds that we have and what's in them, I suggest seeing the video from last year. This video is going to be all of the stuff that you don't normally hear talked about in videos. And what I mean by that is every car is a bad angle, every car is a problem. You might think that creators think that their builds are God's gift to earth, but probably I would say 90% of people have those like little flaws. And well, I'm a perfectionist, as some of you guys already know, so I thought it would be cool to go through the cars and talk about each of their little nuances, and with that give them a rating on exterior, interior, performance, and sound. A lot of people ask me what my favorite car is overall, and it's kind of hard for me to pick one, but by the end of the video, we'll have a rating scale and we'll see which car is ranked the highest. But before we get started, I want to see which car you guys think is going to be the top dog and which one you think is going to be the bottom. This building that we're in right now is where most of the finished cars live, and then over at the shop are most of the works in progress. And that's where we're gonna get started. Welcome to the shop, and we are gonna start with none other than the 13B Datsun. This thing is definitely a driver's car. The body of it, it's not bad, but it's not anything to like write home about. The paint's really not great. The bodywork's really not great. It doesn't have any really cool aesthetic bits. So I'm gonna give this one a 6 out of 10 on the exterior. Interior, I've actually put a little bit of time and love into. I really like the seats and all my sheet metal work. So selfishly, I think I'll give it like a 6 out of 10, just because I know that things could be a lot nicer in it. Performance-wise, the car is actually phenomenal. It's really fast, but the front steering box kind of makes me not like the car for driving as a street car. So I'll give it a 7 out of 10 for performance. It's been pretty reliable, especially with the Link ECU. And then in terms of sound, good, right? It's not the best sounding rotary I've ever heard, but it's hard to have a bad sounding rotary, so I'll give it a 7 out of 10 for sound. Next up, we have my KN6 Series 3 R33 GTR S1, insert acronym here. This car, even though it's like kind of dusty right now, the body of this car and the paint is immaculate. I would give this car a 9 out of 10, but there's one small like paint bubble in the rear wing, so I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10 because I'm real picky about paint. This car, performance-wise, it is nothing to write home about, even though it did a pretty good lap time around here. It's essentially a stock GTR, so I'll give it like a 6 out of 10. I mean, it's not bad, but it's certainly nothing great. Interior on this car is absolutely immaculate. For me, having like a perfect OEM interior that doesn't have any flaws is like a 10 out of 10. And I would probably give this car a 9 out of 10 just because there's really always room for improvement. I don't, you know, unless it's a brand new car. And then sound. Nothing really great. I'll give it a 6 out of 10. It's an RB, so it sounds decent, but it's quiet. It doesn't have anything fancy going on for it. And until I really like build this car, it's just not something that excites me to drive. I just enjoy looking at it. I was torn if I should even include this one, so I'm gonna make it quick. If you've seen any of my videos, you already know this is our giveaway R34 GTT that we essentially built into what I think to be like my favorite iteration of a street car. And by that I mean Garrett turbo, standalone ECU, flex fuel, all the shiny bits. This car, performance-wise, I would give an 8 out of 10. It could be faster, but it feels really good. It's reliable, it's smooth. Sound. Turbo noise on this thing is so good. 8 out of 10, sounds sick. Interior is pretty dang dialed. It needs a head unit, but we haven't gotten to that yet. So interior-wise, I'd probably give this one like, honestly, an 8 out of 10. It's pretty clean. And then exterior-wise, the car is really good. It's a black car. Black paint's really hard to keep perfect. I would probably give this car like a 7 out of 10. In photos, in person, it's like, I would call it like a 2-footer, but if you look up really close, there's a few scratches, a few little touch-ups here and there. It's not perfect, but every $5 you spend on LZMFG or DriftHQ.com is gonna get you in for a chance to win. This is gonna be an interesting rating. This is my first E46. I would say exterior-wise on this car will probably be one of the lowest. I'm gonna give it a 3. There's paint issues, there's dents everywhere, the bumper colors don't match. It's missing a whole chunk of the quarter panel from rust. So exterior, not so hot. Interior, surprisingly, is actually very clean. Like there's a tear in the rear seat, but the front seats are actually in great shape considering the age. I'll give it a 6 out of 10. Performance is getting there. It's not perfect yet, but I've been daily driving it actually quite a bit. And I would go as far as probably giving it a 7 out of 10 for performance. It's pretty dialed other than some like rubbing issues. The drivetrain's essentially brand new. The Turbo S54 makes good power. It's a lot of fun. And the sound, pretty good. I'll give it like a 7 out of 10. Could be better, but definitely it went up from when it was not externally gated. I probably would have given it like a 5 or 6 to now that it's externally gated. It's probably like a 7. Just gives it that little bit of snappy excitement. It's weird because this car is like almost like my Mona Lisa drift car, even though it like was supposed to be a quick, like kind of thrown together build. The level of paint on this car is really, really good, but there are some like wavy spots in some of the fiberglass panels. This was like my old kit from my S15 FD car. And I will say one thing that drives me nuts is these rear fenders are not very wide. So you can't really have like a cool fender fitment. You have to have like a super high offset wheel with like a square tire if you want to run a 265. So this car aesthetically, even though it's as beautiful as it looks, there's little things that drive me nuts that would probably have me only give it a 7 out of 10. I feel like that's low. I'm gonna give it a 7.5 out of 10. Interior wise, it's kind of my signature, or I should say my old signature iteration of like being like a street car / drift car interior with headliner. Some of the interior panels are like a little bit crusty. Oh, this also docks points off the exterior, even though you can't see it. I know that it's there. Interior wise, I'll give this one a 7 out of 10. Sound, cars sound really good. Probably 8 out of 10 on sound on this one. It's got a really nice SR note. It's not too loud, still got a muffler. Then performance, this thing, like, for how slapped together the engine is, it takes a beating, it makes great power, it's been quite reliable. I would give it an 8 out of 10 for performance. My first Evo, old girl Evo 5, which you guys haven't seen in a while, is still down a transfer case after I cooked it in Las Vegas. It is getting rebuilt right now out of another random cooked transfer case I had, so performance on this one's not too hot right now. We'll talk about that in a second. Paint on this car was never great. It wasn't terrible, like it's a solid 10 footer. Like I don't think there was really much repainted, but it's just like some of the clears a little faded. It's got some scratches, no dents. But I feel like the stuff I've done with like the fitment and the stance that's taken me a while to get good, these drive me nuts. I don't like how I did the splitter rods. I just didn't want to drill holes in the bumper, so these like go to the license plate bracket, but I think it looks dumb opposed to like attaching them here. I would give this car a 6 out of 10 based on the paint, but because the cohesive package is as good as it is, I'm gonna go ahead and give it a 7. I also really like the rear diffuser on it. I feel like that adds to the exterior of it. But performance-wise, I feel like I went too far with this car, where it was its best version when it was like 400 horsepower on the Evo 9 turbo. Then I went a little bit too race car with all the chromoly subframes and fancy stuff to make it go faster on a track. And it lost some of my, we'll call it like performance enjoyment. Sure, it's faster on a track, but performance to me is more like, what is the best version of this chassis and how does it rank against that? I would give this one a 7 out of 10. But like, if I rewinded a couple steps, I would rank it as high as a 9 out of 10 because that's how much I used to enjoy driving it. Interior on it is by no means perfect. It's decently clean for an Evo. It has like little peeling issues on some of the door cards, which is pretty common. I think we actually re-glued it, so you won't notice it that much. But it's still clean enough and simple street car, which is my like kind of go-to for any build. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. And then sound is really, really good. Really good. There's not really a better sounding Evo personally. I really like how the yellow one sounds, but this one, I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10 on the sound. It's funny because I used to refer to this as my favorite car if I had to pick one, and I don't think it's gonna really rank that high, and part of that's because I think I went too far. This is the car that I usually will refer to as being my favorite car when people ask me if I had to have one thing to drive for the rest of my life. This car, I think, looks absolutely beautiful. The paint is immaculate. The body, the kit, everything is exactly how I would want it to be, and that's one of the reasons why I haven't changed it. I would give this car a 10 out of 10 aesthetically if it wasn't for two things. One, the fenders and doors need to be like adjusted and lined up a little bit better, so I'm gonna dock some points there. And then the side skirts are so low and the front bumper is so low that they're a little bit chipped and cracked right now. So if the body panels were lined up a little bit better, which is, I think this is the one that I think about, it might be kind of hard to see in the camera. Yeah. If that was addressed and then the chips are on the car, I would probably give this one a 10 out of 10. Performance, 750 horsepower with the stock transmission that came in the car. I would probably give it a 9 out of 10 just because of how reliable it is and everything. But right now it doesn't have a transmission in it because I think I shifted it too hard and bent or broke shifter fork. One of the things in the R154s that tends to bend or break, we took it apart and we couldn't figure out what was wrong with it, so I just got another one. But the performance we'll put at, I'm gonna put it at a 7, just because I also hate the clutch in it. It's like way too tight of a window, so it's very tricky to drive and I end up stalling it a lot. However, when we put the new transmission in, we have kind of like a little ghetto fix that we're gonna do that I think will make it a lot better. Interior, really, really clean. I wound up having to basically swap all of the original brown interior for black. The carpet is dyed, it's not original black carpet, so I'll dock some points there. A few of the trim pieces have some scratches. Interior, I'll give it 7.5 out of 10. Sound. This car would be damn close to a 10 out of 10 if it wasn't for the drone. However, Johan actually just redid the exhaust, so once we get the new transmission in, we'll be able to hear it. It now has an extra resonator. I've noticed with like my 4-inch titanium Vibrant cars, if I don't have an extra resonator, I think the 4-inch is just so big that one muffler isn't enough, and you will get some drone depending on the engine. So this car would be pretty droney driving it. I think though, now that we have the Vibrant resonator in addition to the Vibrant muffler, sound on this car will, it might be a 10 out of 10, but I don't know that. So I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10 just because I needed to dock points for the drone. The R32 sedan, which I don't even think I've made like a proper update for you guys. You might notice it has new fenders on it now. Ray and Josh had to rework the side skirts to get them to fit right with the GTR fenders. It had big vented fenders before that I hated. I would say this car is almost perfect aesthetically on the exterior, although this hood drives me nuts that it's got weird panel gaps, which I think I'm gonna try painting the hood hinges to hide the black that you see through the crack. And then the grille, I'm gonna put an OEM GTR grille as well as like a N1 lip on the front. We'll rate it in its current form right now. Because of the hood gap and because of, I don't really like the front fitment. I think that this wheel needs to be an inch wider, so there's a little bit more stretch here, and then it would look a little bit more balanced. I will give this one a 7 out of 10. If I address those other little things, this car's paint is literally probably the best paint that I've had on any car. It is borderline perfect, so it's very high up there. Performance-wise, this car has always been one of those things that it just works really well. It's really fast, it's really easy to drive, the clutch is really easy, it sounds great. Performance on this car, I mean, obviously I don't use it as a drift car anymore. I wouldn't have rated it high as a drift car, but as a street car, I'll give it an 8 out of 10. Docking 2 points purely because the head is really noisy and it drives me nuts. For whatever reason, when I'm driving this car, all I hear is valve train noise. The clearances are good. I don't know if it's because of the vented hood or just because I'm not used to having an aftermarket Neo head with like gnarly valve springs. But I mean, for a 850 horsepower car, whatever this thing made, it is the most streetable, most enjoyable, easiest car to drive probably out of the entire lineup. Interior, I've put a lot of time into recently, so pretty much old logo / new GTR inspired. The headliner actually is in really good shape. The rear seat's like kind of mid, but very simple, kind of race car-esque. It's missing an ashtray right now, but it's just because it's in the other car. I'll give the interior on this one an 8 out of 10. And then sound. Sounds really good. Really, really good. Probably 8 out of 10. This is a really good car. I'm excited to drive it more, but it's just been getting all the body work done. So now it's actually pretty much ready to drive. So maybe you'll see me start making some POV drive videos with this one. Starting off with the GT350 exterior, it's essentially bone stock apart from the burn in the fender and the meaty drag tires in the rear. So I would give this car probably like a 7 out of 10 because that's basically what I would rate a stock GT350. I think it's a good looking car, but this wheel fitment right now kind of looks stupid. I actually do have some wheels for it that I just haven't gotten the time to mount or get situated, but I think this car's got some room for improvement once the fitment's a little more dialed in. It definitely isn't the best looking car. Performance-wise though, once we get the MagneRide working, this car actually works really well. It shifts now, does everything that it's supposed to. I'd say like 6 months ago, I probably would have rated this thing like a 4 out of 10 in terms of performance. Now I would rate it 8 out of 10, docking the 2 points because I feel like it should be faster than it is, but it's also like 4,000 pounds. So that doesn't help at all. Sound is really good, especially for a Barra. A lot of them sound like really, really like weird. Yeah, this car, if you haven't seen my channel before, go watch the whole car review video or the like car tour, because this car makes like 1,000 horsepower and has a Barra engine from Australia. It's kind of ridiculous. It burned down and then we put that in it. That's enough. So sound, I would give this one I'll give it a 6 out of 10, just because even though it sounds good for a Barra, still compared to other cars, it could be better. And the GT350 is like a 10 out of 10 with the stock engine, so it kind of loses points there. Interior, pretty much stock. Mustang interiors are just a little bit bulky for me, at least on this generation, I should say. The seats help, but overall in the interior, I'll give it like 6 out of 10. It's clean, it's just not kind of my taste. The DCT Mark V Supra, body-wise, I don't know why this thing looks cool. It should not look cool having 18-inch tiny wheels and stock suspension with giant fender gaps. I think TJ's front lip and spoiler kind of like give it a cool looking vibe with the carbon mirror caps. I feel like it should score lower, but I'll give it a 7 out of 10. I kind of like the battle scars of having the scrapes on the door that it came with and the scrapes on the other side for me hitting a tree with it. So that's a decent exterior score for the condition of this car. Interior actually is really nice, especially with the AZA auto wheel that I got in here and the clean little handbrake / DCT shifter setup. But it was totaled and does have like headliner sag from airbags going off. So I'll give it a 7 out of 10 on the interior. Performance-wise, the DCT is not there in terms of a street car, in my opinion. As a drift car, it works. It still needs some dialing in for me to give it a crazy score. Performance-wise, I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10 for both the transmission and for the fact that it just gets hot. I need to upgrade the cooling system. I know CSF makes like a lot of like plug-and-play stuff for this car to upgrade it. Need to do that, and I think it would be a much better setup. Sound. These engines, like, they don't sound as bad as like a farty S58, I think is the engine code of like a F80, but they don't sound as good as a 2J, right? Yeah. So I would probably give the sound on this one like a 7 out of 10. The titanium exhaust helps. The FD S15, probably one of my favorite looking S15s ever. I would give this car a lower score if it was on the 315 because I hated how it looked with the monster truck tire in the back. But when it's on the Blitzes and it has the smaller tires on it, I think it looks way cooler. So this car I would probably give a 9 out of 10. It's got some like battle scars on it, but it honestly kind of adds to the look of the car. I think the fitment could be better. I could have a little bit lower, a little bit more hot boy. So that's the room for improvement. Performance-wise, lately, I have not been happy with how the car drives. I think the best it drove was back when it had the 3.4 and it was being run on a smaller tire. Then when we tried to make big power, it kind of sacrificed some of the drivability. Johan's actually in the process right now of working on some things that involve this car's revamp, where it will have a much more similar drivetrain setup to the E36. Right now, in its current form, I would probably give it a 6 out of 10 in terms of performance. After we make the drivetrain upgrades and we switch to the Wisefab front rack, I predict this car could be like an 8 or a 9 out of 10. But for the sake of score, it's a 6 out of 10 in terms of performance. Sound. It's always sounded good. I don't think this car's ever sounded bad, so we'll give it an 8 out of 10. And then interior on this car, like it's proper race car, but we'll have to put in some old footage because it doesn't have a dash and a lot of stuff in it right now. But the fit and finish on everything in here is really, really nice. So I'd probably give it a 9 out of 10 for a race car. If you don't know this car's been passed around. It's been in a lot of hands. It was kind of like laying in Colette's storage unit out in California for a while, and then she surprised me with premium wraps, and they did a pretty cool livery on it. It's obviously not in the most pretty shape right now. It's got dirty wheels, the fitment sucks, and there's a lot of like little details. It's one of those things where if the fitment on this car was good and it had a little bit of love in a few areas, I feel like it could actually score decent. But given the state of everything right now, I'm gonna give it like a 5 out of 10. Nothing against the wrap. The wrap's fine, just the overall package needs some TLC. Interior on this car is disgusting. I often say that it smells like hobo pee. I don't know a better way to explain the urine stench that is in this car, but it actually drives really good. So interior-wise, this is gonna get a 3 out of 10. Be very easy to clean up and make look nice. Performance-wise, I would actually give this car like a 6 out of 10 because it works really well for what it is. The trans is probably its biggest hurdle. It just grinds every single gear, so that definitely isn't ideal. But we have a full ZF PMC adapter kit that we're gonna be putting on this car at some point, and that'll make it a lot better. Sound. It's a stock 1J with a bunch of mufflers. For a VVTi 1J, it doesn't really sound that great in my opinion, but comparing to other cars, it sounds really good. So give it a 6 out of 10 on sound. I don't know if I should rate this, but this is our newest competition build that we just got back from Bell Raceworks with a beautiful new cage. Exterior right now in this current condition, I'm gonna give it 10. A 1 out of 10, okay? Interior, I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 10 just because this cage is so beautiful that it makes the disgusting looking interior really nice. I don't know if I'll end up covering this in another video in more detail. I probably will. But like literally everywhere where this cage could be welded to the chassis, it's welded to the chassis. He just spent a lot of time getting this cage as immaculately tight as he could. It's very minimal, which was our goal, to save weight and not overcomplicate things. And everything's exactly where we wanted it to be. I feel like I should give the interior a 10 out of 10, but no. It's obviously doesn't have an interior. Performance, 0. Sound, I'll give it a 1, just because it could be a VQ.
It's got good resonance.
It could be a VQ, that's a 0. The E36 comp, bro, you see the wheels just turn on their own? That was weird. The E36, I feel like looked its best before we put the wide rear fenders on. It was narrow body, it didn't have a livery on it. I probably would have rated the exterior like a 9 out of 10 back then. I loved how it looked. Right now in its current form, it's obviously war torn. This thing's been through hell and back. It's been in many competitions. The livery, which was inspired by the livery in the S15 to be like an inverse of it, not really something that I'm like super stoked on. I think like a DTM style livery would probably be suited better for this car and like the body kit and stuff that it has. And then the rear fenders, independent of the fact that they have holes rubbed through them from the amount of grip that this thing has, I just hated how big and bubbly they looked. I liked it better when it had the narrow fenders, but these were a necessary evil to fit the tire. So I would probably give it a 6.5 out of 10 on the exterior. The interior on this car is like, I don't want to say it's done on a budget because it's not necessarily done on a budget, but it's really simple. There's no like overkill fit and finish stuff, but it's painted, it's thoughtfully like presented. I would give it a 7 out of 10 for a race car. I wish we were rating bays because this is one of my favorite bays. It's just very, very simple. Everything's easily serviceable. It looks really good with the color match. I would give it a high bay rating, but unfortunately we're not doing that in this video. Sound-wise, it's a JZ, it can't really sound bad. I'll give it an 8 out of 10 on sound. And then performance, probably one of my favorite drift cars ever on the face of this planet to drive. So I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10 there. I probably would give this car a 10 out of 10 for performance when it had the 3.4 engine in it. Right now, this was our spare engine that went in this when I needed to, I was gonna say when I needed to steal the 3.4, but that's not what happened. I broke it. I think there was like an accessory issue and it put weird load and it actually snapped the front of the crankshaft off. The engine, actually a lot of the parts are salvageable, so we're rebuilding it right now. But 9 out of 10 for performance until it gets a 3.4 back in it. Another one where I wish we were including the bay, the A90 4-rotor Supra. This car, I think, looks ridiculously cool. I worked with John Sabal to design the livery on this car, and it was very interesting because he's like a 3D modeling guy, and not only does he design body kits, but when he designs liveries, he takes into account a lot of the curvature of the car, the spacing between logos. So I think this is, although it may not be my flashiest livery, this is the best sponsor representation livery I have. It's very clear, it represents the brands well, and it follows the heritage of the original 787B livery, which was the inspiration behind some of the shapes that you see on here. I love TJ's Street Hunter wide body kit on this car. It's my favorite one on the A90 Supra. Right now it's super stands out because it just got back from SEMA and I wanted to dump it just so it looked even cooler than it already did. It's got custom Ganadors on it. Man, I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. And I think the only thing that it would take to be a 10 out of 10 is different wheels. It looks really good on these wheels and they work really well with the build. I've just never been a fan of shiny lips on like a gunmetal wheel. They kind of drive me nuts. It kind of works on this car and makes it futuristic, but I definitely think that this car could look cooler. If I say 10 out of 10, that means I think a car is absolutely fucking perfect and there's no room for improvement. But the paint on this car is actually really good. The hood I actually bought during FD Long Beach. I got it on like Facebook Marketplace. It already came PPF'd. So like hood's in great shape. The rest of the car is painted. It all matches. I mean, frick, man, this is a carbon Kevlar door, but like you wouldn't even know. That's how dialed everything is. Interior on this car. My gut wants to give me a 10 out of 10 on the interior on this. I'm trying to find something wrong with it. We got a little bit of orange peel on the paint that probably could get wet sanded. There's a couple wires maybe. These could be carbon. I'm gonna give it a 9.5 out of 10 on the interior, which is like a really solid score. It's freaking cool. And the Recaro podium seats make it, how they tie in with everything. It could have a carbon dash, but I really like the stock dash, having the leather. It's really, really good. And the heel plates that Johan made like definitely help seal everything together. I don't remember if we documented it, but we re-cleared some of the carbon stuff just so everything has like the same glossy finish. Performance on this car, I would probably give an 8 out of 10 if it wasn't from some of the hurdles that we had, like learning the four-rotor platform. The way that it drives and the way that the power is delivered, it's actually a really, really enjoyable drift car that proved to be way more competitive than it should be for how much it weighs and only making 480 horsepower. So I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10, but given the issues that we've had, I would give it a 6 out of 10 until we get them dialed in. Right now, we're just waiting on some parts before we kind of refresh for its next iteration to test and see if we resolve some of the issues. And then sound. It's a four-rotor, so of course it's going to get a high score, but I do think there are better sounding four-rotors out there and that we could tweak some things on the exhaust and the headers to make it sound a little bit higher pitched. So even though it's a four-rotor, an NA four-rotor, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 for sound. So that pretty much covers the shop. Most of these are cars that are in the process of being worked on or are slated to get worked on soon. We're gonna head over to the lift building, as we call it, which is where most of the finished builds and the stuff that gets driven lives. All right, starting out with my R32 GTR. Tommy helped me restore this car. It's pretty much immaculate. I would say exterior-wise, I'm very, very happy with how it looks. The wheels, I think, could be changed to something else that I like a little bit more than the green color. Paint on this car is flawless, but the clear, we burned through a little bit on the hood in 2 spots, so it kind of drives me nuts. I would give it probably a 7 out of 10, probably would be like a 9 out of 10 with different wheels and if the paint was perfect. Performance-wise, this car is one of my favorites to drive. Doesn't really have many mechanical issues that I can think of, really at all. AC works, everything. I'd say performance-wise, this car's probably a 9 out of 10. Interior on this car, pretty much flawless. It was great when I got it. No bubbles in the dash, very like OE plus with old logo Nismo bits. Probably give the interior a 9 out of 10. Sound, man, this might be one of the highest ones yet. I don't know, because I haven't done math. A sound, I think this car is 9 out of 10 too. It doesn't drone. It sounds great. I feel like I'm being too positive. It could be lower. That's about it. It's a really good car. It's fast. I ranked it on the sound already, right? Yeah. All right, this is gonna be really hard to keep track. This will be an interesting one. We got Old Faithful here. This Z's been war-torn and bashed up and crashed into. I still think it looks pretty dang good. Like, it's a Z, so no matter what you do, Z's are never gonna look like a 9 out of 10. I'd say I'd probably give her a solid 6 for looks. Interior-wise is actually really clean, despite like the faded seat. It still has trim. This cubby still works, which is like something that Z's don't usually work. So interior, I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Now I'll give it a 6 out of 10 in interior. Sounds like a trumpet. I hate it. I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 10 for sound. And then performance, she's a good rig. Like, she gets a little warm lately. I think the engine's starting to get a little tired, but like probably a solid 7 out of 10 for performance. Next up, we have the 2 FC RX-7 Turbo 2s, of which I haven't decided which one I'm going to keep. Exterior-wise, both of these cars are pretty much identical in my eyes. They're like solid 6s out of 10s. They're pretty much original paint. I think one of them had some stuff repainted, but there's like panels that are faded, things that aren't perfect, little dents and dings here. Interiors on both cars, though, are absolutely immaculate, so I would give them like 8s out of 10s both. Performance is where the two cars differ though. So this one on the bottom has been built, engine bay's got some spicy bits, but it doesn't run perfect. I think it needs like a tune and some TLC. So we'll give this one like a 6 out of 10 for performance. And this one's bone stock, has some exhaust leaks. So we'll give that one probably like a 4 out of 10 for performance. Sound wise, obviously the built one. Yep, 15 pounds. Actually sounds pretty good. I'll give it like a 7 out of 10. And then the stock one with exhaust leaks and everything, like is a solid 4 probably. The RTR Spec 5 Mustang street car, supercharged. Actually, again, like I guess I'm rating cars higher than I thought I would in my brain. I think because I'm such a perfectionist, I'd spend a lot of time perfecting cars to try to make them higher in my own internal rating system, but this car I've pretty much left stock. Absolutely beautiful car, out of the box. I would probably give this car an 8 out of 10. It would score higher for me exterior-wise if it had, the wheels are just, the color's a little bit matte for me, and I feel like it would feel more me if I had on like some JDM wheels or something. Performance-wise, it's essentially stock as it would come from the dealership with the RTR package. So it's really good. I'd probably give it like a 7 out of 10. It could be a little bit spicier, you know, it's made to be, so like, you know, anyone could just buy it and go and drive it. For me, I need a little bit more excitement in the seat of my pants, but you know, for 700 horsepower, it's pretty dang good, but she's a 7. Sound-wise, it's nothing, it's not a GT350, right? It's not revving super high and sounding super high pitch, so sound, I'd probably give it a 7 out of 10. It's still a really good sound and exhaust system with no like drone or anything. Interior-wise, probably this car loses most points. I just feel like on this generation Mustang, the interior is just kind of clunky and a little bulky. So I'll probably give this one like a 6 out of 10 interior-wise. I added a GT350 steering wheel, which helped a little bit. You know, steering wheel is like the only thing you feel. But I feel like some race seats and a little bit more carbon or something in the interior would be what it needs to get the score up. All right, we've got the two Supras, the 2-door Supra and then the 4-door Supra. We'll start with the 2-door Supra. This thing, exterior-wise, is pretty dang good. The lip, I feel like, should be black. I don't like painted OEM lips, so I'll probably give this car like a 7 out of 10. It would probably be an 8 if the lip was painted and those corner lights weren't all foggy. Fitment's all right too, so that kind of hurts it. If it was better, a little bit more stance, I'd probably give a higher score there. Sound, it's a solid 4 out of 10. I don't think it sounds very good. It's an NAT. The performance is not great. We're gonna put some big motor in this and make it go really fast, but in its current trim, it's probably like a 4 out of 10 for performance, even though it did have a pretty good lap time. Interior-wise is getting there. I got some seats in it, but again, it's not perfect by any means in super standards. Probably like a 6.5 out of 10 for the interior. My Chaser drift car that started out as completely totaled, that's still pretty much completely totaled, but it looks kind of good from the outside. Probably give this one a 6.5 out of 10 exterior-wise. Drives me nuts when my fenders crack like that, but the only way to be low and look cool is to just accept that your fenders are probably gonna crack. I don't know how the hot boy dudes do it where they're like their lip is touching the fender and they still drift. They must have like 0 travel in the front, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not about sacrificing that life. So exterior-wise, it could be better. It's just one of those things, you know, it's been totaled a few times, so you can't make it look too perfect. There's always gonna be little body gaps and stuff. Performance-wise, this thing's been around the country and back. It makes a good amount of power, like 500 horsepower. It's reliable, it sounds great. I'll give it an 8 out of 10 performance just because I think like I can make the front angle kit feel a little bit better on it. Sound-wise, it's pretty dang close to a 10 out of 10. I'll give it a 9 out of 10. You cannot beat the sound of a VVTi 1J. It's spicy. And then interior-wise, it's like definitely seen better days. Like it's got trim and it's all there, but it's a little beat and haggard. So I'll probably give this one like a 6.5 out of 10 because the seats are cool and they have carbon backs. This is a good one. The Laguna Seca Blue E46 M3 that was a dream car of mine at the time. Still kind of like one of the most iconic cars to me. Exterior on this car looks really good, but it's a driver. Like there's few little like scratches, nicks, a little bit of chipping on like the front of the fenders and stuff. A few panels have been repainted. So I'll give it a 7 out of 10 for exterior. I'm super anal about paint, so if something isn't absolutely perfect in all original paint, it'll never be a 10 out of 10 for me. Even if it was like repainted perfect, it's just not the same as OE. Performance-wise, this car is really, really good. I did the big 3, so it's got subframe reinforcements, it's got the Vanos done, it's got rod bearings done. Drives great. Need to change around the coilovers. The setup that came on the car is just valved a little aggressive, so it's very bouncy and it kind of drives me nuts. So that hurts the performance score more than anything, but I'll still give it a 7 out of 10 because it's so dialed everywhere else. It's kind of interesting when it comes to the performance score. I'm not scoring in terms of like, oh, this one makes the most power, or this one's the fastest. It's kind of like the performance relative to what it is. Like if this was the perfect iteration of a stock S54 E46 M3, a 10 out of 10 would be like the best driving one, and then like a 0 out of 10 would be one that like doesn't run. Interior on this car is like one of my favorite parts about it. It's locked, but you guys can see the B-roll. It's got the OE speed cloth swapped into it, or M-Rain, I forget what it's called on the E46 M3s. But it's really cool. It's got a few little saggy spots in like the headliner that I have to have addressed. That kind of hurts the score from being like a 9 out of 10 to be like an 8 out of 10. Sound-wise, I don't know why Castro's custom setup on this just like has 0 rasp. Makes it not sound like an E46 M3 in the best way possible. So I'll probably give this one like an 8 out of 10 for sound. Pretty good car. I'm not even gonna rate the Kuki. I don't even know I have it. It was like one of those deals where I got it along with another engine for a good price, and then the engine turned out to be blown up, and then I got sad. It's just sitting there. I don't know if I'll ever do anything with it, but I honestly don't even remember enough about it to give you guys an accurate rating. So we'll move on to the Evo 6.5 TME RS. Exterior-wise, this car was not perfect. They only came in white. So this is a wrap. This was done by Premium Auto Styling. The wrap they did an amazing job on, but as with a lot of wraps, you're always gonna get like a little bit of orange peel. So they did body work on it, so it honestly looks almost perfect on the outside. These wheels on it were the drift wheels when I decided that I wanted to drift it and have fun. And then the headlights could use a nice defogging. So exterior-wise, it's a freaking cool car, but it's not perfect by any means right now, so I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10. Interior needs some hella love. It's just, you know, the cage was never painted. The interior is missing a bunch of stuff. It's pretty much a race car. I've got a bunch of stuff to make this car super nice when I finally dedicate the time to build this into a time attack car. But for now, I'm gonna rate the interior probably like a 4 out of 10. It's not so hot. Sounds really good. That's just like a typical Evo. Like I'll give it probably 7 out of 10. And then performance-wise, it actually drives really good. It's simple, it doesn't make a ton of power, but it's very balanced, it handles well, it does everything that I ask it to, it shifts well. It leaks a little bit of oil, so I'll dock a few points there, but I'll give it a 7 out of 10 for performance. The BC Racing CRX that started out as an absolute box and still is an absolute, no, I'm just kidding, it's actually really nice. This car, like, I was not a big CRX fan. When I embarked on this project to have a compound lap time car, I originally wanted like a Civic hatch, and then this car was presented to me like really cheap with a B18 already in it. So I was like, huh, whatever. And I wound up falling in love with it. And this was supposed to be like our lowest level paint job, just like a low lift, not make it look super nice. And the vision of like this thing kind of looking period correct with the WED Sports and the two-tone and everything, I would give this car probably a 9 out of 10 in how it looks. The paint is actually really nice. Like, it's not perfect by any means, but it's really, really nice. Cohesively, it looks good. The fitment's good. It's a really, really cool looking car. Interior came out amazing, very like drift inspired. My only complaints interior wise is like the cluster's a little like dated and it's got some cracks. So I like the dash has cracks. But honestly, interior wise, I'd give this car an 8 out of 10. Performance, almost perfect, like it does everything that I ask it to. I think alignment could use some tweaking, and third gear, it doesn't stay in, I think. Is it that? Or no, it grinds a little bit going into third gear, so it could probably use a like some synchros or something. So I'll give it an 8 out of 10 for performance on that. Sound. I feel like I like B18s, but it's like a love-hate relationship if someone hates them or thinks they're raspy. This thing screaming at 9,000 RPM sounds rad. So I'm gonna give this car probably an 8 out of 10 for sound. All right, the good old faithful, my first drift car, my S13. Of course this car is 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10, 10 out, nope, just kidding. There's always flaws with cars. I feel like my life's goal is to make every car perfect. And because of that, we will always stay busy in the shop because I'll always find something wrong with cars. I'm sorry, it's a problem, but it also makes me find things and make them better and help sell good drift parts. Okay, S13. Exterior wise, this thing's pretty freaking cool. I didn't pick the cream originally, the cream picked me and it just stuck. It's a really cool color. Bodywork on this car is not perfect. Paint job is actually really good on it, but it's got some panel gaps, so Fitment's really good. It's got a few little dents here and there. I will give it a 7 out of 10 on the exterior. I feel like it's kind of a harsh score because this thing is my baby, but you know, if I saw this and it was someone else's car, I'd be like, you could do better, you know? Interior wise, still really clean for an S13, no cracks in the dash. It's missing a couple of vents because I drive so fast that they just fly out, but it's still got like door cards, half painted interior. Pretty cool. I would give the interior a solid 7 out of 10. It would have been a 6 out of 10, but we actually just recently redid the whole handbrake setup that was getting rusty and was like cracked and stuff, so it got a little boost up there. Sound, it sounded better before. I think at some point I took out one of the resonators thinking it was gonna make more power, and then it got a little raspier than I'd like. So I would give this thing probably like a 7 out of 10 for sound. It's not the best sounding SR, but it's also not the worst sounding SR. Performance though, this car for being on a stock ECU tuned by Martin 5 or 6 years ago, it's driven all the way across the country at like a bajillion different events, making 500 horsepower on ethanol, and it never skips a beat. Chassis is ridiculous in terms of amounts of grip. The angle, GK Tech feels beautiful on this car. So I would probably give this one an 8 out of 10 for performance, which is really good considering it's a car that we like don't touch and I pull out once every 2 years to film some dumb video. Z-Roy, all right, we got the twin turbo Z. I came up with that idea in Grant Shower, and here she sits, burnout car. Performance, I'm gonna start off with first. Finally got it feeling really good. I decided to put a new transmission in it instead of throwing in old junky transmissions over and over again. Really good with a nice softer clutch. That definitely upped its performance score. My biggest complaint with it is this car was tuned on UpRev, and now it seems like the common thing is EcuTech, which gives you a little bit more control. The limiter just sounds weak on it, and it's a burnout car, and having like a weak sounding limiter that also does weird stuff makes me nervous about the car, so that'll dock the performance score a little bit. For a burnout car, it's a solid 7 out of 10. Exterior aesthetics, I kind of like it a lot. Like, I love the blown up rear and the drift skinnies on the back for doing burnouts and the crash damage and the cool little side skirts and front bumper. I give it a solid 6.5 out of 10 for exterior. Interior is rough. I think it's still got like splits in the dash and the steering wheel from the airbag. Yeah. It's got my old confettis in it that used to be in my Chaser that got damaged in shipping. Interior is probably a 5 out of 10 on this one, but sound, it could sound better. It definitely could sound better, but it sounds really good, especially when it's coming at you from the front, because you get like this like really cool engine noise. Probably a 8 out of 10 for sound. I feel like that's a little high, but I really like how that thing sounds, you know? The limiter though hurts it, so I'm docking that to a 7, sorry. All right, we have the Evo swapped E36 that is in an ongoing custody battle between me and Chelsea DeNofa right now. It's complicated, I don't even feel like explaining it right now, but I'm still gonna rate this car anyways. Exterior is not perfect. I don't know if it's been repainted. I guess it probably is because the rear, like the two-tone bullshit. Exterior, we'll give it a 6 out of 10. Performance, this car is really, really good. Ice cold AC, drives beautifully like a brand new car, so I'll give it a solid 8 out of 10 for performance. Interior, not bad, but it's got like tan and it's kind of mismatched and stuff, so I'll give it a 7 out of 10 there. Sound. Bro, I'm actually really stoked that it has such a quiet exhaust because I can actually hear the induction noise.
Yeah. Dude. Yeah, that is sick.
I don't remember if we ever fixed exhaust when I broke it.
Yeah, I think we did.
Okay, considering if we fix the exhaust, all you hear is induction noise, and I'm like pretty much about that, so I'll give it probably a 7.5 out of 10 on the sound. My 992 GT3 Touring. This car was the replacement for my purple car that got wrecked, and I just wanted something different. I didn't want it to feel like the same car. I still don't know how I feel about the Touring. The front end's grown on me a lot. The rear end, I'm feeling kind of iffy on. I don't like that it has stickers, but they're underneath the PPF, and I've been too lazy to take it off. The color's grown on me a lot. I will give it an 8 out of 10 for exterior. If it had a wing and was a normal GT3 and had gunmetal wheels and a carbon roof, it would be a 10 out of 10. Those are like the things that I wish that this car had, but it's still an absolutely beautiful car. Also, I wouldn't have axle lift in the front, so I can make it lower. I loved how low my purple car was. Interior on this car is really cool. I talk about the Houndstooth a lot just because I think it's funny and it triggers people. It's actually kind of grown on me, and I like how it feels in my bottom because it's got like some nice texture, and you know, it's just like, you know, it's really good. And the interior is probably one of my favorite parts about this car. If I could change anything, I'd just put probably an Alcantara steering wheel in it. So I'll give the interior a 9 out of 10. Sound?
I'm really happy with the sound. I love it.
This car, 10 out of 10. I've had probably 10 different exhausts on GT3s, all from Dundon, but all of their different iterations and setups. This is their titanium center muffler with loud inserts and their long tube headers with cats. So if you have a GT3, that is the go-to setup. The inserts basically made the quiet mode quieter and the loud mode louder. So I have absolutely zero drone, like the quiet, almost as quiet as stock when I have it in like the not loud mode. And then when I turn on loud mode, she screams. It's got all of the great like GT3 RSR style rasps up high on decel. So I don't remember if any other car got a 10 out of 10 on sound, but this one for sure, 10 out of 10. Almost forgot performance. This car, I would give it a 9 out of, see, it's tough. Like I could give it a 10 out of 10 for performance. I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10 for performance just because I could have a little bit more aggressive like alignment on it that would make it have a little bit better handling, but I opted to split the difference from a street alignment and a track alignment, which is honestly really good as a well-rounded car. I just noticed I wasn't as confidence inspiring up in the mountains, but also I might just be a little bit of a the last time I was up there. So I don't know if we should bleep that out if that's offensive or not. So I'll let that be up to you. But we should definitely include it so people know that I'm acknowledging that it might be the driver and not the car. This is Polaris. Nope. Can-Am. It's been a while. I'm not very well versed in the side-by-side game. This is my side-by-side that was redone by Side by Side Blog, and I'm going to do my best to rate it, but I do not use it nearly enough. I really need to make some trails or like make time to go drive this because it's one of my favorite things to do. Performance-wise, I will give it a 7 out of 10. It's got the bigger turbo, it's got cams, it's got a little higher compression motor, but I feel like it needs to be dyno tuned. It's just like an off-the-shelf flash, and I can just feel like one of the problems, the more I learn about tuning and the more knowledgeable I become driving cars that are half tuned, fully tuned, tuned by one person, tuned by another person, the little nuances drive me nuts. So if a car is lean in one spot or super rich in one spot and I can hear it or feel it, it's like when you smell something bad and you have to keep sniffing it. When I feel something bad in a tune, I have to keep finding it to know that it's still there, and it just drives me nuts. So I need to get this thing dyno tuned, but performance-wise, it handles really good. These Nittos are sick. This thing is an absolute monster on the track. Exterior, you know, I like the wrap. The LZ on the roof is a bit much for me. You know, I like myself, but I don't know that I like myself that much. But I left it just because it's still kind of cool, I guess. The white's cool. This was inspired by like a Ford Escort kind of rally style livery with the mag blue wheels and everything. So exterior wise, I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Interior's cool. I got my LZ custom seats. You know, in the side-by-side game though, some of these dudes are putting like $40,000 interiors in their side-by-side. So I'm definitely not up there, but I think it's pretty cool. I'll give it a solid 7 out of 10. And then sound. Sounds pretty good, not gonna lie. I got the Yoshimura like carbon Japanese exhaust on the bit. Like, you know, she probably like solid like 7 out of 10 or something like that. And then my first performance car, the E92 335i from hell. And I say that because this car, man, we've had some real bad memories together after I started with it. When it was stock, she was great, but once I put the single turbo on, it was just a never-ending nightmare. If you have a 335i because I inspired you in my videos, I think that's really cool, but also the first thing I'll say to you in person is I'm sorry, because I know the life that you now live and the problems that you now deal with, and I'm sorry if I f***ed up your life in that way. Looks, aesthetics, I liked it more on the LMs. These wheels, I'm not a big gloss black guy, and the fitment's a little whack, but it's what I had to do to get the grip in it. Although now I feel like tire technology is so much better than it used to be. I think I ought to put the LMs back on just with a stickier tire. I'll give the looks on this car no, 6.5 out of 10. A lot of people like the M Sport front bumper. The underside, it looks so bad. I like the aero lip. I think it looks a little bit lower and makes it look less like an M3 clone. So that is one thing that I always liked, and I really like the rear of this car too. Performance-wise, it actually like works and does what it's supposed to. It's just every other pull, it does something weird because of like pulling timing from this or that, or it's just not reliable. I think standalone would be the key to make a reliable 750 horsepower. Shifting is kind of tough in it. The clutch is a little bit touchy. I will give it a 6 out of 10 for performance. It would probably be a 7 if it was a little bit more reliable. Interior-wise is red, in really great shape. It's got a bride seat in it just because this car got shipped over to Germany where it never touched down to the Nürburgring was supposed to, and I wanted to have a bucket seat in it. So I'll give the interior like a 7 out of 10. Sound is really good. It sounds really, 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 really good. Not really actually it's really drony. I'll take off some points there. It's like I'll give it a 6.5 out of 10 for sound. Yeah, so that's that. If you want to see more content on this car, comment below and maybe it'll happen in the next 10 years. Holy f, dude, R34 GTR, 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10. All right, let's be real. You guys know that like this car is not perfect to me, and because I talk about all the flaws, but I don't talk about all the things that are great about it. The paint, for me, original paint, is really, really good. The front bumper needs to get resprayed, but I've left it on with little chips because it makes me less scared to drive it. Because of the little chips, I will give this car 8.5 out of 10 for exterior. The paint's in really, really, really good shape, but it's absolutely by no means perfect. I mean, it's what, 20 years old at this point. But I really like how this car looks overall. Performance-wise, you guys know my Achilles heel with this setup. It's really great, it's really responsive, but the transient lag when you shift the car makes it so stressful to try to flat shift with a gearbox that, like, for whatever reason, sometimes it just doesn't want to shift at high RPM. And it just, I don't know, it makes me self-conscious when I'm driving it because it's very difficult to drive it fast. And it's like, it's an R34 GTR, so it's supposed to be God's gift to earth. And it, you know, it's great, but my R32 is better. So performance-wise, I will give it a 7 out of 10 at some point in time. I think that we will end up changing the engine package setup. I mean, everything mechanically works beautifully. The car handles great. I just know that the engine package and the setup on it could be happier. Interior-wise, the car is absolutely perfect. I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10 because I would like to put a different steering wheel in it instead of the stock one. And I think a 10 out of 10 GTR interior would have black V-Spec 2 seats, which I have, but I don't have the rear seats and I don't have the door panels, so I would rather have the interior all match. Sound, this car is really good. It does have a tiny bit of drone. So that will dock it a little bit, but I'll give it an 8 out of 10 for sound. It's really hard to keep track of this stuff. That's why my brain keeps breaking trying to think of it. So that's pretty much it. I think there's obviously cars that exist in other countries and stuff, but for simplicity's sake, I figured we would just do the ones that we can look at, touch and feel and smell. So we're gonna go back to the drawing board and do some math because we said a lot of numbers and I have no idea which car is in the lead, but I think I have a feeling and I'm curious to see if your comments were correct or if they were absolutely dead nuts wrong. And actually, a little bit to my surprise, I should have realized this when I was doing the score. The GT3 Touring got the win, which in all fairness, it's probably the most expensive car, at least in terms of buying, not building. Porsche just knows how to build a really good car, I guess. Surprisingly, the GTR, the R32, and the CRX were the two runners-up. It's pretty cool to see how the list stacked up, but I do know that a few of them would move around if I was able to do things that I want to do, like the Chaser. I know she's gonna move up once we get another trans back in her. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this, a little bit different. I just wanted to wrap up my time at the compound before I go to Ebisu. I'm gonna be in Japan for about a week. I'm not planning to do like daily videos or upload a whole lot, probably like 1 or 2 videos of the whole thing, just so I can enjoy it. It's a short trip. When we get back, we'll be going right into home renovations. A reminder, check out the Obsessed Garage channel and subscribe there if you wanna see all the updates, because the coverage on my channel will be light. We got a lot of compound stuff going on when we get back too. See you then. Performance, 0. Sound, I'll give it a 1. Just because it could be a VQ. It could be a VQ, that's a 0.